Hey, hey. Ooh. How you going, fam? How you doing? I'm back in the forest. Yesterday, I did the part 2 of drugs and hip-hop. And watching it back, it kind of spiraled into a rant about a bunch of different stuff. And I was a bit worried that I was missing the point, but you have to understand, a big part of this vlog for me is unwinding and processing myself. You know what I mean? And yeah, like I had a few people hit me up and they're like, you know, oh, hip-hop is what gave you your platform to speak. And I'm not talking bad about hip-hop. I'm never talking bad about hip-hop. I talk about people that use hip-hop for negative things, you know. Hip-hop's my truth. Hip-hop's my vehicle. Hip-hop's is giving me my life, you know. But yeah, they're saying it was a wild comparison to compare the promotion of drug use in hip-hop and to the mistreatment of people in a sexual way. And I thought, didn't Rick Ross drop a hip-hop song about date raping women? You put Molly in their drink and then you enjoy her later, you know, like, what do you mean it's a wild comparison? Guilty Conscience by Eminem and Dr. Dre. There is a verse in that song literally weighing up if they should rape a girl that's passed out and underage. That was Eminem and Dr. Dre. My favorite rapper that I loved for half of my fucking life has a song literally weighing up if they should fucking sleep with an underage girl while they're passed out. And this was normalized. This was sold in stores. Do you understand why I'm fucking pissed off? This is fucking not normal, but we've normalized it in the culture. If you want to sit here and dismiss the fucking reality of this fucking world, I ain't talking shit. What comes out of my brain and is coming out of my mouth is unwinding being in this deeply fucking toxic environment. You have to understand, it's bullshit. I'm not just speaking from a place of like, oh yeah, I see this shit. I fucking know rappers that fucking 13 years ago were pretending to be good people, but they were making nasty music. Years later, once they're cooked from all the fucking drugs that they've taken, they've ended up doing some nasty shit. And it's funny, as much as they pretended to be a good person in the start, they ended up doing the nasty shit they were putting out there. So, understand, this is fucking bullshit. You know, it's fucking hectic. You know, when I helped my mate Kane Richardson from Risdon, write an EP so he could turn his life around, right? Kane is a well-known ex-criminal now, but he was a well-known Tasmanian criminal for 15 fucking years. And in his EP, he had some gangster shit about the crime that he did. And I remember when we put that out, I had a lot of judgment from the community around me. And they're like, oh, you know, I think it's a good thing that you're helping that criminal. What's he talking about in his music? And the same person that asked me that question had Eminem, Marshall Mathers, LP sitting on their fucking CD shelf. And I looked at that, I went, oh, you love that album? They go, it's my favorite album, Eminem, oh, I love Eminem. And I'm like, well, he's got lines about raping his mum, fucking choking his missus to death, fucking chainsaws, fucking everything. My mate Kane's not talking about that shit. He's not talking about fucking giving mushrooms to a girl at a party and fucking listen to all that shit. And don't get me wrong, there's certain parts of the world that we're probably experiencing that culture already, but when that culture gets captured and put into music and then sent across the world, that's the cultural influence of it. You know, when that album came out, I was a fucking 10-year-old kid in Tasmania, this tiny little island at the bottom of Australia, the other side of the world, way, way, way far away from Detroit. And I watched it change the culture around me. You know, Eminem enabled some very toxic behavior. Thank you. Oh, bless. Yeah, Eminem enabled some toxic ass behavior. He was obviously terrible with relationships. He was obviously possessive as fuck. You know, he traumatized his fucking baby mama and his music for, what, 20 years? Going out on stage holding a fucking blow-up doll of the mother of his child. That's some dark ass shit. Regardless of what you've been through with your baby mama. It was a fucking horrible example to put out the world, and the industry pushed it. The industry sent that album across the world, and you know, once again, I think Eminem was probably one of the first people to be so fucking good at putting trauma into music that it trauma bonded with the whole world, and yeah, enabled so much fucking toxic behavior. And this is true. If you don't see the connections, then I'm grateful for your perspective, because that means you haven't had to experience this shit, or you haven't been around it. You know, the reason why I'm speaking on this is because I get put in the same category as these motherfuckers. You know what I mean? Because I'm a rapper. The same kids in the street know me, know them. Put me in the same box. I'm nearly done with rap because of this shit. I can't be in this fucking world or this scene when that shit is casually just going on and on and on. I'm going to speak the truth, and that truth will set you free. All right. Thank you for listening. I got that out of my system. I'm going to talk about homophobia in Australian hip-hop now. We're firing it up. We're going straight to the deep end. Homophobia in Australian hip-hop. Okay, so to start this yarn, I have to explain the history of homophobia where I grew up, which is Tasmania. So, Tasmania, it was illegal to be gay until 1997. I was 8 years old when they decided to stop locking up gay people for being gay. And now, when you look at, Tasmania was the last place to accept or to decriminalise homosexuality. Tassie was the last place, and was known for its deeply rooted homophobic culture. You know, when I was a kid, I remember hearing that the gays from Tasmania all moved to Sydney to get away and hide from the danger. Okay? So when you look at the first 60 years of colonisation in Tasmania, all the ships that were getting sent out had like 10 men for every 2 women. So from like 1803, 1804, when the settlers rocked up, to 1850, 1860, when they changed the name from Van Diemen's Land to Tasmania. And half the reason they did that was to really hide the past of that first like 40, 50 years or whatever it was. Because they didn't want Van Diemen's Land to be the name, because it was connected to so much debauchery. So yeah, around 1850, you know, there was like 60,000 convicts and settlers here, but only like 10,000 of them were women. So this is where the deep culture started. You have to understand, it's all connected. So how's this, right? The governor or whoever, or what his name was, I can't remember, the person that decided to build Port Arthur Prison, which was the first official convict prison in Australia, he decided to build it with single cells, because in Marai Island, which is a small island off the east coast of Tassie, there was another penitentiary there. And apparently, you know, at this penitentiary on Marai Island, they used to put like 10 inmates to a dorm. And, you know, over time, the governor would come into, or the fucking lieutenant, I don't know, whoever would walk into the fucking dorm and the 10 inmates would have put all their beds together and all be cuddling. And you know, they were so freaked out about this when they built Port Arthur, they strategically fucking made it single cell to stop the inmates from being close to each other. Yeah. You know, apparently, like, there was quite a lot of gay convicts that, for the few times they wrote letters and the few times they left something behind, there was heaps of gay love letters from the convicts, you know what I mean? And who knows? Who knows what that's all like? Once again, you can only speculate. But because there was so many men and barely any women, so much trauma came from that circumstance. Whether it was rape with the indigenous people that were here, or fucking men raping each other, or people just validating themselves out of survival, or you know what I mean? Like, it's hard to fucking really speculate, but it seems that, you know, that early culture, that early circumstances is what developed a deep homophobic culture in Tasmania. So, and that was, you know, not behind closed doors. But the thing is, he also, so all through the 1900s, and the government would take children away from their families because they would say, your family's not safe. And they would put these children in government-owned facilities where these kids would end up being abused by the officials that worked at these government-owned facilities. And it's rampant in history. Boys' homes, detention centers, fucking everything. You know, it was always most of the time places for predators to abuse their position of power. So, like, when I was young in Tassie, I heard of, and I'm going to use the real language. This is what people called it. And I know this is probably very triggering in 2024 to use this language, but I don't want to desensitize it because this was the fucking reality. Is that Pooftabashin was a serious cultural practice in Tasmania. Because all these men that had been through a lot of trauma and then put in situations when they were abused, you know, you have to understand once again that, like, you know, we're only establishing the difference between all this sort of shit. And when you're a young man and you get abused by a man, you grow up with a fucking resistance to fucking that sort of behavior, you know? And from what I understand of the era of severe Pooftabashin that was happening in Tassie, you know, it was the days of where gay people had to go to a random park somewhere and flash the lights to find a hookup. You know, there's no Tinder or Grindr or whatever, you know what I mean? And there was gangs of traumatized men that were trauma bonded because they'd all been abused by men. And so the way that they thought they'd deal with their trauma was by going and inflicting it onto gay people. It was a deep culture. You know, when I was in prison in 2019, I was hanging out with a friend of mine and I helped break this down because he was still living with that mentality that had been passed down to him through his father, you know what I mean? And it took me jokes, I used jokes and humour to help break the tension. And eventually after a day, he could see why, he's like, oh yeah, maybe it's not my position to go terrorise gay people, you know what I mean? And he's now a very open-minded person that is so much more in control of understanding his emotions in different ways, you know what I mean? And this is how we have to help each other break down the walls because, yeah. Either way, so, homophobia in Tasmania, like, yeah, it was illegal to be gay until I was 8 years old. And so I remember when the first time one of my mates came out the closet, and it wasn't until I was about 17, I think I was in grade 11. And when he came out the closet, my first response was, oh, but can I still say faggot? Please? Oh, I love the word faggot. Why did I love the word faggot? Because I listened to Eminem, faggot. And also because of what I'd been through when I was young, I had sorts of I had energy towards that shit, you know? And yeah, it's been a learning journey for me. I remember when Macklemore dropped the song about, you know, the struggles of being gay. I can't remember the name of the song. And when that song came out, I remember watching it and going, look, mate, I don't care if you're gay, but fucking being gay and hip hop don't mix. Fucking, nah, this is bullshit. And I remember I put up a status or something. I was like, nah, fucking, this gay rap, nah, it's not hip hop, nah. Being gay and hip hop, nah, don't mix. And someone hit me up and went, what the fuck, really? Like, I thought you were way more fucking open-minded than that. And it slapped me and I went, true. No, they're fucking right. You know what I mean? Like, who am I, once again, to fucking, you know, decide what's hip-hop and what's not? I can't, you know, like, it's, all I know is I can keep learning, I can keep the house clean as best I can, you know. But, yeah, you know, Hilltop Hoods, you listen to their early shit, lots of homophobia, you know. And homophobia and hip-hop started early, like all the early shit. The Message, used to be a fag hag, used to be, you know what I mean? Like, the early hip-hop all had homophobic shit. You know, Funky Cole Medina was a song about going to hook up in the club and finding out it's a man, you know. There was a lot of that sort of shit in the early era of hip-hop. And you have to also remember, the early era of hip-hop came just after the disco era. And the disco era was hectic because it became a drug culture. It started off with music, and then disco became a really deep drug culture, and that got really sexual because everyone was taking heaps of drugs, Club 54, and, you know, it was evolving rapidly. And all the young people that were watching the end of the disco era were like, this is fucking bullshit. I don't like all of this, because, you know, it was New York in the fucking 70s and 80s. It was a chaotic place. Like, fucking buildings were burning down. Crack, like real crack, not meth. But, yeah. And New York was very diverse. Not only racially, but as sexuality-wise, you know what I mean? New York has always been a place for fucking crazy and profound culture to fucking rise, you know what I mean? And that's, yeah. Once again, I'm really trying to speak with, I'm trying to speak with as much compassion as I can. And if my language is blunt, I'm sorry, because that's the environment, like, you know. And the thing is, yeah, when you look at early hip-hop, and especially I think as well, from what I understand, is that there was, like, homophobia, that's it, it's the pendulum swings, you know. So from the circumstances of the early convict days in Tasmania, it swung to a deep homophobia. And from what I understand, especially in the communities in America where hip-hop came from, you know, at times of oppression, you know, a lot of those communities went through the same thing. You know, rape is an abuse of power. You have to understand that shit. And a lot of this shit fucking, yeah. I'm really trying to keep my mind working straight. And it's hard because, yeah, when I'm talking about this shit, it's, you know, it brings up emotions. I'm processing and unwinding. So, and first of all, you know, I really have no issue. I believe that everything is meant to be. That's what I believe it is. And it's not up for me to judge, and it's not up for me to try and you know. And this is the balance I'm trying to find in this world of, yeah. So yeah, hip hop had a lot of homophobia mixed in with it. Once again, it was that sort of time around the world, you know, the 20 years that this all came up was civil rights, gay rights, women's rights. You know, it was a time for people speaking up. And yeah, hip hop came from the same thing, but for many years it was a very, once again, male dominated genre that came with a lot of toxic masculinity. And yeah, that's what it was. You know, fucking, yeah, Eminem was definitely a massive projector of the homophobia. And the older I get, the more I really fucking question a lot of the shit that guy said. I really do. And that's where I think a lot of the early homophobia in Australian rap, not only the homophobia that was already in Australia, due to the, you know, the extremely conservative culture Australia thought it had, and then the homophobia in rap reached Australia and they bonded. So how's that? That's where I think it came from. That's, you know, and yeah, so battle rap. Oh, battle rap, you know. Battle rap is... So yeah, okay, here's another situation, right? So years ago, I was at the laundry in Melbourne and a rapper came up to me and went, "Oh, bro, I'm a big fan. I'd even suck your dick." This is what this guy said to me. This is like 10 years ago. And my instant reaction was to headbutt him. That's what I did. And then me and this guy ended up battling. I ended up battling the same guy a couple of years later. And when I battled him, I called him a faggot and I fucking said, "I headbutted you because you wanted to suck my dick." You know what I mean? And in hindsight, I actually caught up with that guy last year and I apologized because I realized that once again, my actions were fucking came from a place of pain that I was still carrying and I hadn't processed and I hadn't even let go and I wasn't even aware I was carrying the pain because I buried it so deep. But when that guy said that word to me, I just went, "What can't boom?" You know what I mean? Like I just didn't think twice about it. And yeah, you know, that battle is still out there of me being extremely homophobic to someone for fucking a whole rap battle and projecting the pain that I had onto him. It's so interesting to understand yourself at this, you know. So, yeah, I know there's a lot of talk about the LGBTQ community in the hip hop scene. And I have a lot of people that I respect and love dearly that are a part of that community. And I will continue to treat everyone with love and respect. And once again, it's not for me to really go deep into that shit and understand it, but I believe everything is meant to be. I have faith and I have trust, whether it's part of God's actions or whether it's a part of human actions, you know. I think once again, the church that really fucking preached against the gays, but were the ones that were actually doing a lot of the fucking abuse behind closed doors, I've always, you know, massively struggled with the hypocrisy of all this shit, you know what I mean? Like it's, you know, Tasmania, you have to understand, okay, so what I'm expressing with all this shit is coming from a lot of different stuff in the world and me understanding the world more. So in Tasmania, because this culture of abuse was so strong within the government, They had a gag law in Tasmania to 2019, 5 years ago, where sexual abuse victims, it was illegal for them to tell people who abused them. Oh, who made that law? Who made that law, yeah? Which fucking lawmaker decided that sexual abuse victims can't call out their abusers? You know? I guess, you know, me processing this shit and fucking putting it out there is because of this deeply keep your mouth shut to a government legal point where they had gag laws on shutting down the victims that they were fucking abusing. This is literally the lawmakers using their power in society to fucking, you know what I'm talking about. So, yeah. See, I need to go back. Homophobia within Australian hip hop, you know, and battle rap. That's right. So at battle rap, fucking still last year when I was traveling the country doing rap battles, there were just rappers going, yeah, you're fucking gay. Yeah, you're fucking gay. Yeah, you suck dick. You're gay. And then the other guy would go, nah, you're fucking gay. Nah, you suck dick. Yeah. And then the whole place would go, oh. And then the other person would be, nah, you're gay. Oh, nah, you're gay. Oh, and at the end they'd just be like, nah, I love you, brother. I was like, what the fuck? This is some fucking projecting ass shit. You know what I mean? But what I'd do to break down the tension and just the awkwardness of it, after the rap battle, because I was hosting, I got on the mic and I'd go, I was like, ladies and gentlemen, unfortunately, we've got some people in the room that aren't sexually comfortable with themselves and they're doing a bit of projecting. And on behalf of this event, as the host, I refuse to get cancelled based off someone else's fucking uncomfortability of their own sexuality. So tonight, for every motherfucker that fucking drops a gay joke, I'm gonna fucking suck your dick. And you should have seen the audience. Like half of them were like, whoa, what the fuck? No, fuck this, I don't want to hear this shit. The other half were just losing. I was like, hey, I don't give a fuck. I'm good, I'm comfortable with myself. I'll suck your dick. It was fucking silly, you know? But I don't give a fuck. I am comfortable with who I am. You can ask me any question. I'm good. And so, yeah, I'd use my position of not giving a fuck and being comfortable with myself to help break down these walls. Which is crazy when you think back to it. This is where I'm at with my healing journey, is that I headbutted a guy for suggesting that he wanted to suck my dick. And here I am, 10 years later on a stage telling a bunch of battle rappers if they keep on making gay jokes, I'm going to suck their dicks. See what I mean? You got to understand yourself. You got to understand where this shit comes from. Yeah. And yeah, you know, Lil Nas X, for example, that's someone that makes me a bit uncomfortable. And it's not his gayness. It's more how he's manipulating the image of God. It's more how they're manipulating and playing on this God and devil shit. And yeah, I think God loves everyone, you know. If you're good with God, you're good with God. And that's on you. It's not up for anyone else to fucking, you know, say. And I think it's all a part of the plan, God's plan. Whatever you're going through, everything, you know. Because for me, yeah, it's a fucking hard one. Because I know that cunts like Lil Nas X are using the religious circumstances, one, to get numbers, to put it out there, fucking, to piss off the Christians. That's what all these dark motherfuckers like doing. And I used to like pissing off the Christians too. And I still like calling out the fake Christians. you know. But once again, it's up to God. I'm not the fucking shepherd. No, I can't take that role to fucking be out here. And this is the struggle. I know so many people across the country. I've known thousands of rappers. And I've seen the ones that were rapping about dark shit 10 years ago, and then it became their reality and all this sort of shit. And, yeah. Yeah. So, you know, it's interesting. I've got nothing but love for my gay brothers and sisters. You know, I've got people that I love that are trans, and it's not up for me to decide. All I know is that I'm going to treat people with love and respect, and I'm going to allow God to do his work, because I've learned in my life every little fucked up thing I went through was a blessing. And when I found God truly, this is where this all started making sense and rapidly tying up. The more that I, you know, mindfully, consistently try to process this shit, let it go, because I really struggle to walk around in a world of everything being behind closed doors when people aren't being honest about it. I really struggle. And then, for example, as I said, in Tasmania, 2019, there was a gag law, you know. So that just goes to show how deeply embedded into the government system all of this shit is. And yeah. Yeah, I know that, like, if you watch one of these and then you don't watch the other one, some of it might not be in context, because this is all things that are coming out. And I guess there's a lot of people hit me up like thinking that I'm comparing, you know, the level of drug abuse to rape, but I'm not comparing. I'm connecting. Do you understand? Like, I'm explaining the connections. It's not comparing, because yeah, they go hand in hand. And homophobia and hip-hop went hand in hand for a long time. It was a part of it, and yeah, it was a part of the culture. As was severe homophobia. I'd say the homophobia that I grew up around was way more severe than the homophobia I heard in hip-hop. Do you know what I mean? Like, the homophobia in hip-hop was light compared to the poofta bashing. Literally, fellas would go break arms and legs of gay people because they were traumatized, and they reflected their trauma onto other people that reminded them of the people that caused them the trauma. And because, once again, we don't have the chance to hear people's true intentions, and, you know, this is the beauty now with this sort of media, is I can explain and put myself out there and just, you know, and I'm speaking fluently. I'm not really, you know, I'm just allowing this shit to come out. You ask me a question and I walk around in the forest and I just, oof. But yeah, I see all these connections, and love and respect for yourself first, and love and respect for everyone else, love and respect for God. Like, that's, I don't know. That's it's the answer that I see, because the more this shit is coming out, the more this shit is fucking a lot more. See, the lines are getting blurred everywhere. The lines are getting blurred, and that's where my head's just going all over the place, because I'm like, hold on, this is all deeply connected. The whole world, personally, is 6 degrees of separation away from each other. You know, and humans will find their tribe. Gay people hang out with gay people. You know what I mean? But yeah, it's a complicated world, guys. And the thing is, with this language and all the labels that we use for everything that's different from each other, slightly, we forget that we're all the same. We're all fucking 6 degrees of separation away from each other. We all eat, sleep, and shit. That's the truth. But we, you know, my gay brothers are my brothers regardless of their fucking sexuality. You know what I mean? Yeah. And, you know, labels are important to explain who people are. But this is, you know, once again, where the labels get taken, they get abused by the public. They get abused by the people carrying the labels. Everyone's so caught up in their label. I'm trying to let go of all of mine. Because I refuse to be boxed in anymore. I'm just going to move freely as I do when I'm doing these vlogs. I don't think about it. Just move freely. Away from this society that keeps boxing us into these places. But yeah, so that's what I think about homophobia and hip hop. You know. I'm going to have a break from talking about all this trauma shit. I'm going to talk about some different stories and like my journey. I'm going to talk about some different, all sorts of different stuff, you know. Because yeah, I feel a bit exhausted. I've done a lot of being very vulnerable, and you know, I've done a lot of yeah, processing through explaining these things. And I feel better for it. I feel better for it. And I hope that you do. I hope hearing this sort of shit, and I know that there's a lot of you that are listening to what I'm saying, and there's not many other people saying this sort of shit, and it's a relief for people. And it's a relief for me, but you know, I do need to protect my energy. I do need to stay strong in my spirit, and I need to allow the peace of God to kind of keep guiding me through this shit, because yeah, this is the reality of the world that I live in. Everywhere I go, there's all the things. There's all the things, you know, and homophobia is one of them. There used to be a law where you could get away with bashing people or hurting people, even murdering people, if you were in the middle of a gay panic. That's what they called it. So like literally, if you murdered someone, you could say, oh, they were gay and they were coming on to me and I just lost it and I murdered them. And the court would go, oh yes, gay panic, charges dropped. Fuck, you know what I mean? You could literally get away with murder by saying someone was gay and that they cracked onto you. Yeah, very interesting. It's crazy. And the more I learn and the more I understand that on either sides of the system, this is all a part of the human condition. Humans are very complicated, easily influenced creatures. And we're at a point now where it's so overwhelming. It's so overwhelming. You know, a lot of young fellas that I know are so overwhelmed by the amount of information out there. And a lot of them, you know, literally struggle to communicate because there's just too much going on. And people also, so there's too much going on, your brain's full of all this shit. We know more than ever, we've got access to more resources. But then they're not confident enough or given a place to speak. And if you allow all this fucking shit, if you've ever known anyone that's deeply traumatized from abuse, and if they don't heal, people become manic. You have to let it go, you know. And it's not something that just happens once. You have to keep pushing. It's a process. Healing is a journey, not a destination. Healing is a journey, not a destination. And I hope that what I'm saying can help heal people out there. Whether it's your own prejudices, or whether it's your own dots in your life that you haven't connected that's helping you understand, whether it's yeah. But we need to process. We need to process. We also need to just be. We also need to find that peace. You have to find it. Because the chaos is chaotic. And the yin-yang of life is the balance between order and chaos. But when there's too much order, chaos will develop within inside it. And that's where this systematic shit happens. And I guess I'm speaking so recklessly that it's chaotic. You know what I mean? But I'm speaking my truth and I'm speaking my perspective. And just know, once again, I'm just another human trying to figure it out and understand the human experience. And I learned that from Dave Chappelle. Dave Chappelle is a very interesting person, and I think a lot of people don't understand him on a deeper level. But all we are trying to do is get through this world, understand the human experience, and trying to have a good time through all the chaos. So once again, love and respect, you know, love and respect. Love and respect. Much love, fam.